In 2003, scientists stumbled upon findings in their research that revealed that a large group of people who were close geographically were also close genetically. Well, of course, that's to be expected. But this was more than having shared ancestors. No, scientists had found that some 16 million people, 0.5% of the world's men, were directly related to one man, Temujin. You may know him as the prolific warlord, Genghis Khan. Yes, I'm talking about the most successful military campaigner who conquered the largest contiguous empire ever from Asia to the Middle East, and even north towards the Arctic. He wasn't just a prolific statesman, though. The findings from 2003 prove that he was also a prolific lover, and history shows that this reputation as the world's most popular daddy is directly tied to the unspeakable things his ginormous empire enabled him do to the women he wanted, especially his enemies' wives. Surprisingly, this story of a unified empire's conquest of the world begins nearly 900 years ago in Central Asia, with several small warring tribes constantly at each other's throats.
Temujin.
Legend has it that Temujin's birth was no ordinary affair. He supposedly came into this world holding a clot of blood in his hand. And get this, his family believed he had divine origins, claiming that his first ancestor was a gray wolf. They thought he was born with a destiny straight from the heavens above. Born amidst the nomadic tribes of the Mongolian steppe, Temujin was cradled in the arms of the first woman in his life, none other than Holan Eek, his mother. His mom, Holan, was a total boss lady who went through a lot. She was born into the Okanud tribe. Holan was also set to marry Chiledu of the Merkit tribe, but fate had other plans for her. On her way back to the Merkit camp after the wedding, she got kidnapped by none other than Yasuge, with the help of his elder brother Negun Taishi and younger brother Daratai Ochigi. Why? Well, he couldn't resist her beauty and signs of being super fertile. Now, Yasuge wasn't just any old guy. He was a big shot, the chief of the Kiyad subclan of the royal Borjigin clan of the Mongols. He saw something special in Holun, so he made her his chief wife, giving her the ultimate honor. You know what that means, right? Only the chief wife could pop out some heirs for him, so she gave birth to 5 kids. First up, we got Temujin there, who would later become the legendary Genghis Khan. Then there were Kasar, Hachiun, and Temuje, some seriously impressive sons. And let's not forget about Temulin, the badass daughter of the gang. Yasuge had another wife named Sochigul, who gave him 2 sons, Bader and Belgute. Looks like Yasuge was quite the family man, mirroring the very type of person his son would perfect. Everything was great for the family, but everything changed in 1171. When Temujin was just a young lad of 9, tragedy struck their family. Yasuge met his unfortunate end. He was poisoned by the Tatars while attending a wedding feast. Here's how it went down. Yasuge had left his son Temujin at the home of Dai Setsen, a nobleman from the Kongarad tribe. You see, Dai Setsen and Yasuge had made an agreement that their children, Temujin and Borte, would be married in the future. So with this plan in motion, Yasuge embarked on his journey back home. On his way, Yasuge stumbled upon a lively Tatar encampment where a grand feast was underway. The secret history reveals that he was tempted to join in the festivities, but he knew he couldn't reveal his true identity. Among the Tatars, he was known as the person who had killed one of their relatives in battle years earlier. Despite the risks, Yasuge decided to take a chance. However, someone from the Tatar camp recognized him and, disguising their intentions with false hospitality, offered him food laced with poison. Yasuge, though becoming gravely ill, managed to escape back to his family's camp, fighting against the venom coursing through his veins. So yeah, eventually he died 3 days later. Yasuge's passing took a turn for the worse for Holan, Sochigel, and all of Yasuge's children. Yasuge's Kiyad clan decided to abandon them and follow a rival clan, led by the rival Tachiat family. But don't underestimate Holan, because she was one tough cookie. She took charge of the situation and became the leader of the group. She hustled hard, tirelessly scouring the Onan River Valley for roots, berries, fish, and millet to keep the family fed, instead of the usual nomad feast of juicy mutton and mare's milk. As the boys grew up, they learned valuable survival skills from their surroundings. They became skilled hunters and fishermen in the rugged Khenti mountains of northern Mongolia. These newfound skills significantly improved their family's situation. Now, while Holan taught her sons about the importance of unity and supporting one another, there was some sibling rivalry brewing among the half-brothers, Temujin and Bader. One day, Temujin went hunting and caught a fish, but his older half-brother, Bader, snatched it and gobbled it up all by himself. By nature, Bader was a bossy know-it-all, always throwing his weight around. That also rubbed Temujin and his brother Kasar the wrong way. So, Temujin Temujin decided to take matters into his own hands. He stalked Bader, waiting for the perfect moment. With his mad archery skills, Temujin shot an arrow, taking Bader down. But here's the surprising part. Despite the tragedy, Bader's mother, Sachigel, and Bader's surviving brother, Belguti, didn't harbor any ill feelings toward Holun and her sons. They chose to continue living with them, and as Temujin killed one brother, he found another one pretty quickly. When Temujin was 11, he crossed paths with a boy named Jamuka during clan visits. They were like two sides of a coin, Jamuka from an aristocratic background, and Temujin from more humble beginnings. But that didn't stop them from becoming buddies, so they sealed their friendship with a pact, swapping cool stuff like knuckle bones and arrowheads. As they grew up, they took their bond to the next level. They became blood brothers through a sacred Mongol ritual called Andas. It involved drinking each other's blood, symbolizing the sharing of souls. They even ate some crazy indigestible food together. This ritual made their connection super strong, stronger than any sibling bond. Temujin had a knack for gathering followers and overcoming tough situations, even from a young age. One time, Temujin was captured by the rival Taichut clan. Remember his father's Kiad clan who abandoned them and joined forces with their rival clan, the Taichut? Yeah, those same people. They made him wear a ridiculous wooden collar, but Temujin wasn't one to stay down. He knocked out his guard with the collar and escaped. One of the Taichut members spotted him but was so impressed by his spirit that he chose to help him instead of turning him in. Another story is when horse thieves stole most of Temujin's family's horses, he set off in pursuit. Along the way, he encountered a guy named Boorchu. Temujin asked for help, and Boorchu immediately joined him without expecting any reward. He recognized Temujin's authority and became a loyal companion, leaving his own family behind. This ability to bewitch people under his authority would almost directly lead to his ascent from the humble conditions we now find him in. Becoming the Khan. In 1178, the 16-year-old Temujin was determined to find his betrothed, Borte. They had been apart for ages, and he couldn't wait any longer. So he tracked her down in their old village, and they decided to tie the knot. But this little joyous moment would not last for Temujin. Things took a crazy turn right after their marriage. The Burgi escarpment where they got attacked by these Merkit dudes. Temujin and his family managed to escape on horses, but poor Borte got left behind with no horse. Then a servant tried to be sneaky and hid her in an old cart, but the cart broke. And when they tried to continue on foot, they got surrounded by soldiers who found Borte in the cart. And just so you know, in those wild Mongol steppes, it was like a free-for-all when it came to snatching up women from rival tribes and making them your own. Remember, Temujin's dad did it too, back in the day when he swiped Holun from Chiledu of the Merkit tribe. So, you see, it was kind of payback time when the Merkits decided to get back at Temujin's tribe by kidnapping Borte. Of course, Temujin was determined to rescue Borte. Fearing a lack of manpower, Temujin reached out to his blood brother, Jamuka, for help. With a force of 20,000 warriors and help from Jamuka and Togrul, he launched a badass attack on the Barkajin territory where the Merkits were hiding. The Merkit dudes ran like scared cats down the Selenga River. And little did these Merkit people know that later, Khan would enslave their women and exterminate them all. It took them 8 long months, but finally, they were able to rescue Borte. Inspired by their victory, Temujin pledged loyalty to Jamuka, transitioning from a hunter to a steppe warrior under Jamuka and attaching his clan to his blood brother. Well, the new role was more prestigious and could definitely provide a better life for Temujin's family, but this meant taking orders from Jamuka. In a grand ceremony, Temujin and Jamuka renewed their vows, exchanging prized horses and golden sashes on a cliff's edge. They made a promise saying, "Let us love each other," and celebrated throughout the night. As a symbol of their brotherhood, they slept under the same blanket. In Mongol culture, they had a social structure. They had the upper class, called the white bone, and black bone, who were the commoners. Jamuka was considered as a white bone, while Temujin was a black bone. With this, eventually, tensions arose due to Jamuka's emphasis on lineage over their bond. Eventually, Jamuka treated Temujin with less respect due to Temujin's popularity among the men in the camp. Jamuka, being part of the upper class, also considered Temujin's belief in meritocracy a threat and an insult to the ruling class. In 1181, Temujin reached his breaking point with the changing dynamics of his relationship with Jamuka. While they were leading their men to a new camp, riding side by side as usual, Jamuka asserted his dominance by ordering Temujin to tend to the sheep and goats and camp by the river, while he took the horses to camp in the mountains. This event marked a significant turning point in their friendship. It got even worse when Jamuka humiliated Temujin by assigning him demeaning tasks. Temujin's wife, Borte, in fact, urged him to break away. Temujin listened to her, so he and his clan secretly fled from the camp that night. Temujin was a firm believer in listening to his wife's advice. He respected Borte and trusted her wisdom. Mongol men knew that having a smart smart wife prevented them from making dumb decisions. So in separate ways, Temujin and Jamuka grew their own clans and led to 2 decades of non-stop warfare against other tribes all over the steppe. Both of them had the same goal, to become the ultimate ruler of the Mongols. However, in 1189, Temujin and Jamuka came face to face. Jamuka won the battle, but he wasn't content enough that he displayed cruelty by boiling Temujin's captured generals. Well, in Mongol tradition, this meant that their souls would be annihilated. This act backfired, causing many to desert Jamuka. Motivated by vengeance, Temujin regrouped. In 1204, Temujin and Jamuka met once again, but this time Temujin emerged victorious in a battle. Despite their rivalry, Temujin still felt attached to Jamuka and offered companionship. He was even willing to let bygones be bygones and join each other again. Jamuka was moved, and he asked his blood brother for forgiveness. However, as per custom, Jamuka insisted to be killed, believing that his spirit would protect Temujin's lineage and that dying is the best way for him to prove his loyalty to his blood brother one last time. With a heavy heart, Temujin fulfilled his request. With Jamuka's death, Temujin eliminated his last obstacle to power. In 1206, he convened a Kurultai, where he was unanimously chosen as Khagan, the Khan of Khans. He embraced the name Genghis Khan and set out to etch his legacy in history. War and war crimes. The word Genghis Khan is said to translate to universal ruler or universal chieftain, as a sort of homage to Temujin uniting the Mongol tribes, and that is what we'll refer to him as moving forward. But for the Khan, when he heard people call him that name, he probably wasn't thinking about conquering some tribes in the Mongolian steppe. He was thinking universal, because what followed was kind of like that. Genghis Khan revolutionized Mongol traditions through his leadership style. He flipped the whole Mongol tradition on its head by ditching the noble rank system and introducing a merit-based promotion setup, meaning even if you were the poorest of the poor, as long as you have shown exemplary skills and loyalty, for sure you're going to be promoted. He didn't recruit his army by asking nicely, but it was more like join or die. Despite this, he still won their loyalty by promising them a piece of the war spoils instead of being a greedy hoarder. He believed that being too loaded was a weakness. Genghis Khan had a straightforward war strategy. He never left any enemy leaders alive as he conquered more land. Why? Well, it served a couple of purposes. First, he didn't have to worry about getting stabbed in the back later on. Second, it made him look like a ruthless badass. When those Mongol warriors attacked villages, they didn't mess around. Most of the poor folks living there ended up 6 feet under. Now, we can't say for sure how many people died during Genghis Khan's time, but some historians think the number is over 40 million. Genghis Khan had a secret weapon, terror. He didn't just kill and destroy, he made sure a few survivors were left to spread the horrifying tales of what happened if you didn't surrender. When he decided to wipe out a city, he meant business. No one, I repeat, no one was spared. Men, women, children, even animals got the axe, except for a few chosen witnesses. This scared the living daylights out of other towns. They surrendered as soon as they heard the Mongols were coming. Those Mongols had a reputation for their ugly looks and stench, so people were terrified. Prisoners? Nah, the Mongols didn't bother with that. Torture? Not much of their thing either. They preferred the efficient approach, kill them all quickly. When they did capture people, they'd use them as human shields, making them march in front of the army, so they'd be the first to bite the dust when attacking a city. But let me tell you, if you were an enemy ruler, you were in for a world of pain. Choking on stones shoved down your throat, getting trampled by horses, or suffocating were just some of the gruesome ways they dealt with those guys. Let's talk about some specific attacks. First, Genghis Khan and his crew rolled up to Yinchuan, the capital of Shishia, around 1209. They pretended to retreat, but it was all part of their plan. Eventually, they put the squeeze on Yinchuan, and the ruler there was like, okay, fine, take our stuff. After that, they set their sights on the Jin dynasty in northern China. The Jin ruler had the nerve to demand Genghis Khan's submission, but these Mongols weren't about to back down. From around 1211 to 1214, they caused chaos everywhere they went, forcing people to flee into the cities. The Jin army was so messed up that they even started killing their own peasants. In 1214, the Mongols surrounded Zhongdu, now Beijing. The Jin ruler got scared and coughed up loads of valuable goodies like silk, silver, gold, and horses. That sneaky ruler decided to move his court down south to Kaifeng. Genghis Khan wasn't having any of that. With some help from Jin deserters, he went berserk and wiped Zhongdu off the map. In 1219, Genghis Khan, with his mighty Mongol army, set his sights on the Khwarezmian Empire. He got into a beef with Inalchuk, the governor of Otrar in what's now Kazakhstan. Turkmenistan. After a siege that lasted for 5 whole months, the Mongols broke through the city walls. And as for Inalchuk, they pour molten silver down his throat, even pour it into his ears and eyes. The defenders of Otrar put up a brave fight, but every single one of them was wiped out by the Mongol swords. The Mongols didn't just conquer the world, they committed atrocities while they were at it. In 1220, in this ancient city called Termez, now Uzbekistan, a local woman came up with the crazy idea of claiming she swallowed some fancy pearls. She hoped this story would make the Mongol invaders think twice about taking her life. The Mongols, always on the lookout for loot and riches, took the bait. So, without a second thought, they sliced her open and searched for those precious pearls she claimed to have gulped down. The Mongol commander, witnessing this gruesome spectacle, ordered his gang to disembowel every single person in the city. April 1221, these Mongols came packing a whole arsenal of weapons in Nishapur, Iran. Nishapur puts up a fight, but in the end, house-to-house combat turned the streets into a bloody battleground. And the poor survivors? They're brutally beheaded, whether they're hiding underground, buried under rubble, or just lying lifeless in the streets. The Mongols took the severed heads of their victims and built 3 pyramids of skulls, one for the men, one for the women, and one for the innocent children. In fact, it was Genghis Khan himself who gave the order to his commanders, leave no trace of Nishapur behind. That means even the poor little furry critters like dogs, cats, and even the pesky vermin got wiped out. In 1221, Genghis Khan and his crew stormed into the city of Merv, which is smack in the middle of present-day Turkmenistan. When the folks of Merv surrendered, they probably thought they might catch a break, but the Mongols went on an absolute rampage, showing no mercy whatsoever. Genghis Khan himself, who was front and center, ordered that each warrior had to take down at least 300 poor souls. The Mongols squeezed out every ounce of wealth they could find. They resorted to torturing the wealthy citizens, hoping to wring out their hidden treasures. They weren't messing around when it came to getting their hands on that loot. Some say the death toll from the Merv massacre reached a haunting 700,000. A Persian chronicler from back then, clearly shaken to the core, claimed that the body count soared to a 1.3 million. In 1227, the world bid farewell to the legendary Genghis Khan. It was said that he knew when his time was coming to an end, so he made sure his burial spot was kept a secret. Fast forward a few centuries, and we meet Marco Polo, a Venetian explorer who rubbed shoulders with the mighty Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan. Now Marco Polo has a spine-tingling story to tell about Genghis's funeral. 2,000 poor souls, slaves tasked with laying the great emperor to rest. Their own guards, the ones supposed to protect them, turned out to be backstabbers. They mercilessly cut down these slaves in a twisted act of betrayal. However, another group of soldiers swoop in like heroes, putting those treacherous guards in their place. Their goal? Erase any evidence of their presence, wipe out any poor souls who might have caught a glimpse of their path. When these stealthy soldiers finally make it back to base, they decide to take matters into their own hands. They chose to end their own lives. Like some dark and tragic grand finale, Temujin came in bloody fashion, and Genghis Khan had just exited the same way. Yet his legacy was so set in stone that even after his death, the empire he left behind would keep expanding. And it was all because of the way he had set up said empire. Why the Mongol Empire worked. Genghis Khan was no ordinary ruler. He knew how to shake things up and rule like a boss as he expanded his empire. He came up with some crazy innovative ideas that led to the development of strong trade routes and alliances. So you see, the Mongols had an army unlike any other of their time, often regarded as the first modern military force. They organized their troops in a rational structure, similar to the Roman legion, with units in multiples of 10. He divided it into decimal subsections like squads of 10, companies of 100, battalions of 1,000, and divisions of 10,000. He also had a crew called the Imperial Guard. Their infantry relies on their highly mobile horseback warriors. This allowed them to carry out complex tactical maneuvers silently, following centralized commands. Speed and efficiency were the Mongols' trademarks in conquest, striking fear into their enemies. Their strength lay in their skilled horseback riders and expert use of the bow. Merit determined promotions within their disciplined ranks, so he rewarded their loyalty by giving them high positions, no matter their social class. Technological advancements and logistical expertise were additional factors contributing to the Mongols' superiority. They developed gunpowder with explosive force, enhancing their weaponry with guns and cannons. Specialized units of craftsmen built sophisticated siege machines using local resources, and this eliminated the need for long-distance transportation. The Mongols perfected the technique of sapping walls, rendering static defense futile. A dedicated medical corps attended to the wounded. To sustain their forces, the army and horses roamed the plains in search of forage, eliminating the need for traditional supply lines. Despite this, a sophisticated communication system based on melodies enabled efficient coordination and facilitated contact with distant leadership. The Mongols boasted an exceptional intelligence system, often knowing more about the lands they invaded than the defenders themselves, because their lifestyle as nomads meant they possessed crucial knowledge of water sources and pastures. They also employed highly sophisticated methods of psychological warfare, spreading rumors of their cruelty and devastation. This unnerved rural populations, causing them to flee in advance of the Mongol army and undermining defense efforts. Plunder constituted the primary aim of the Mongol army, which would be collected centrally and distributed fairly among the troops and the families of fallen warriors through the kubi system. This process required extensive numerical record-keeping, resulting in the development of a sophisticated bureaucracy that managed the accumulated wealth. Artisans were gathered and relocated to production centers catering to Mongol preferences. Through these endeavors, technology spread across the continent in all directions. Genghis Khan, in his quest to unify his people, targeted the aristocratic lineages that posed a challenge. By eliminating them, he essentially decapitated the enemy's social structure, minimizing future resistance. Cities, especially in desert regions, were razed to redirect trade routes, and irrigation systems were destroyed to revert agricultural fields to pastures for the Mongols' horses. Genghis Khan held a strong belief in the all-encompassing power of the great blue sky that stretches across the world. From this universal divinity, he derived his mandate to establish a global empire. Along the Silk Road, Genghis encountered various religions that traveled with traders and were embraced by women who married into neighboring tribes. He was all about religious freedom. He let people practice their own faiths and even exempted the poor and clergy from taxes. That's how he won over Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, and folks from all over the place. But at the same time, Genghis Khan ensured that the state held authority over religion. To secure his rule, he executed troublesome shamans who posed a threat. Prior to his rise to power, Genghis faced rejection and persecution from rival lineages within his own people. However, once in control, he established a rule of law that applied equally to all. This approach allowed him to unite the defeated clans into a single nation, while dismantling the oppressive influence of the traditional white-bone lineages that had oppressed the people. To keep things in order, Genghis Khan introduced a new set of laws called the Yasa. It was like his rule book, outlawing stuff like stealing, fighting, and hunting during breeding season. He was all about maintaining order and justice. You won't believe this, but Genghis Khan was way ahead of his time when it came to gender equality. He banned the selling of women and actually encouraged his wives to have a say in major decisions. Genghis Khan was also a big fan of education. He encouraged literacy and even adopted the Uyghur script, creating the empire's own Uyghur Mongolian script. He was all about spreading knowledge and improving communication. The Mongols relied heavily on trade to meet their essential needs and indulge in luxuries. They took control of the Silk Road, facilitating the movement of vast quantities of goods in both directions. And to facilitate economic transactions, paper money was introduced from China, with its value backed by the spoils of war. To sum it up, the Mongol Empire consistently demonstrated a universal outlook. They were open to adopting and merging systems from various sources. Cultural preferences held little sway over their decisions. Instead, they prioritized pragmatic solutions. Their approach was to seek out what worked best and then disseminate it to other regions. In fact, one of the Mongols' notable accomplishments was their ability to assimilate into local cultures, which contributed to the remarkable stability of their rule. Women in the Mongol Empire. Women were not just bystanders in the Mongol Empire, they were active participants in every facet of its operation. Whether it was on the battlefield or in the realm of governance, women played crucial roles and were indispensable to the success of the empire. Let's take Borte, for example. Borte wasn't just any ordinary wife. She became the Grand Empress of the whole Mongol Empire. She brought more than just a marriage to Genghis Khan. She had her own wealth and was one sharp and savvy lady. Borte and her mother-in-law, Holin, were in charge of managing the people, animals, and the overall economy of the camp. She was a big shot in the Pan-Asian trade routes and even advised important officials and merchants. Borte had a lot of say in her husband's decisions. When someone came to them for help against a rival tribe, she didn't hesitate to speak up and describe the cruelty of their enemies. And you can bet Temujin took action. She also had a hand in who got to hang with the big boss. If she thought someone was causing trouble or disrespecting their family, she made sure Temujin dealt with them. While Temujin was out conquering lands, Borte held down the fort back home. She ruled her own territory managed her own court, and even took care of orphans as if they were her own kids. Genghis Khan, like many influential Mongol leaders, had numerous wives and concubines. It was customary for powerful Mongol men to have multiple wives and concubines, and Genghis Khan followed this tradition. Kulan, Genghis Khan's second consort, had an intriguing story. Her father surrendered to Temujin, offering Kulan as a symbol of submission. When suspicions arose, Kulan boldly offered herself to Temujin to prove her loyalty. Temujin accepted the surrender, but later dealt with her father's betrayal. Kulan became one of Temujin's wives and took charge of a wifely camp during his military campaigns. These camps housed other wives, concubines, children, and even animals. Now, here's an interesting tidbit. Genghis Khan had a unique way of measuring women's attractiveness. He used a point system, and if a woman didn't score high enough, he would pass her on to his loyal lieutenants. Genghis Khan also had a preference for the wives and daughters of defeated enemy rulers. Take, for example, the Tatar sisters, Yesugen and Yesui, daughters of Yekecheren, and Duerbisu of the Naiman tribe. Some women were also bestowed upon him as gifts, like Chaka, the daughter of Liangquan from western Xia, who was given to Temujin by her father as a peace offering, and Quiguo, daughter of the Jin dynasty emperor, who proposed that if Temujin agreed to spare Zhongdu, now Beijing, from attack, he would offer him Chiguo as a reward. Now, this lady named Abaka was gifted to Temujin as a wife as well. After a couple of years of being married to Genghis Khan and not popping out any kids, he divorces Abaka. He then handed her off to Yurchidey, who happened to be a general and a member of the Urut clan. What's vile was that Yurchidey was actually the one who took down Ibaka's father when he turned against Temujin. Genghis Khan's soldiers believed he possessed extraordinary sexual prowess, and he didn't mind fueling that belief. Rumor has it that he engaged in the company of multiple women every single night. Mongol women in general were in charge of camps and had a wide range of responsibilities and tasks. They were responsible for managing the home, taking care of the children, and overseeing daily herding activities. They handled food and clothing preparation, performed religious rituals, and entertained guests. They also played a crucial role in organizing the movement of the camp from one location to another, arranging carts, and setting up yurts upon arrival. Without these women, there would be no camp for the Mongol men to return to after their military campaigns. Mongol women shattered societal norms and held significant influence within the empire. They married older men to benefit from their wisdom, and their advice was highly valued. These women challenged cultural customs by riding horses, leading armies, and participating in sports competitions. Genghis Khan trusted his daughters and sought their guidance, recognizing that those who could manage households could manage territories. Daughters-in-law held prestigious titles, while sons-in-law served in the Khan's army. Mongol women inherited property and often became heads of families. They even exerted control over sexual matters. Married Mongol women distinguished themselves by wearing elaborate headdresses, showcasing their love for hats and headgear. Widows, upon the death of their husbands, inherited property and assumed leadership as the head of the family. A notable example highlighting the influence of women in Mongol history is Sorkaktani, wife of Tolui, Genghis Khan's son. As an advisor to Ogodei, another of Genghis's sons, she played a crucial role in her household. Sorkaktani ensured her sons, including Monke, Kublai, Hulagu, and Arik Boke, received the education and language training necessary for leading an empire. She skillfully maintained the unity of the empire through diplomacy during Guyuk's reign as Khan. Following his death, her son Monke ascended as the Great Khan. Sorkaktani's contributions to the empire included promoting trade, fostering intellectual exchanges, advocating religious freedom, and advising against exploiting conquered people. Her efforts left a lasting impact on the Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan's successors. Genghis Khan divided his power among his four sons, giving each of them a kingdom to rule. The eldest son, Yochi, got the western lands. Chagatai received Kashgaria and Mavranakar, while Ogodei was granted western Mongolia. Tolui inherited the ancestral homeland in eastern Mongolia. In 1229, Ogodei became the Great Khan with the approval of the Mongol assembly. The family setup went like this. The oldest son got a wife and his share of the inheritance, then set up his own camp while staying connected with the family. The younger brothers followed suit, setting up their camps closer to the home camp. The youngest son stayed with the parents and inherited what was left. Yoki ended up far away due to his strained relationship with his brothers. When Ogodai became the Great Khan, it didn't break any nomadic rules, since it was acceptable to choose the most capable son during times of war. Batu, Yochi's successor, established the dominant Golden Horde. They ruled over the Russian principalities and became mostly Turkish, adopting the Turkish language and Islam. They were sometimes referred to as the Kipchak Khanate due to their reliance reliance on nomadic strength from the Kipchak steppe. The Golden Horde indirectly contributed to the rise of the Grand Dukes of Muscovy through taxes and tribute. Their power was shattered in the Battle of Kulikovo in 1380, and attacks by Timur further weakened them. To the east, there were the Chagatai lineage and the Ilkhans of Persia. The Chagatai rulers often clashed with the Great Khan and the Ilkhans, while the Ilkhans recognized the authority of the Great Khans. The Chagatai maintained their nomadic lifestyle, while the Ilkhans, influenced by urban life, gradually relinquished control to their subjects. Hulagu, Kublai Khan's brother, supported the Yuan dynasty against the Chagatai and the Golden Horde. In 1240, Genghis Khan's grandson, Godin Khan, invaded Tibet and sought guidance from Sakya Pandita, a Tibetan Buddhist leader. They formed a relationship where Sakya Pandita attended to Godin's religious needs in exchange for authority in Tibet. As the Great Khan, Ogedei continued Mongol campaigns in Russia, the West, and China. He maintained imperial representatives in Central Asia and Iran, but struggled to control the disobedient Golden Horde. After his death, Guyuk succeeded him after a turbulent regency. Guyuk clashed with Batu of the Golden Horde and died while preparing an attack. During a grand assembly, Munkei, son of Tolui, was chosen as the Great Khan. He aimed to stabilize relations among the Khanates and sent Kublai to conquer Zongchina and Hulegu to subdue the assassins. Munkei led a campaign in southwestern China, but passed away in 1259. A dispute arose between Kublai and Mongke's brother, Arigbog, over the succession. Hulegu supported Kublai, and after 4 years, Arigboga submitted to his authority. Kublai Khan moved the capital to Dadu, formerly Zhongdu, and employed foreigners to reduce reliance on Chinese bureaucrats. After Kublai's death in 1294, the Yuan dynasty saw weak rulers until their expulsion by the Ming dynasty in 1368.